Indonesia semakin unggul di berbagai sektor, melampaui Malaysia ke depan. Pertumbuhan ekonomi yang pesat, inovasi teknologi, dan kepemimpinan yang kuat membantu Indonesia mengukir prestasi. Dengan sumber daya alam dan manusianya, Indonesia memimpin sebagai kekuatan regional. Peningkatan infrastruktur dan investasi menunjukkan potensi besar Indonesia ke depan. Indonesia berada di jalur menuju kemajuan yang lebih tinggi dan menjadi teladan bagi negara-negara di kawasan. Dan itu bukan hanya omong saja, tapi sudah diakui oleh pengusaha ekonom asal Malaysia. Ia menceritakan perkembangan pesat Indonesia dan menyalip Malaysia.
I come to Indonesia, I become more optimistic. We are Malaysians, so I'm speaking as a Malaysian. The question that some of us are thinking quietly or aloud is whether in the next 10, 20 years, Indonesia will get ahead of Malaysia again. Whether 20 years from now, Malaysians will be migrating to Indonesia to look for work. You know, the minimum wage, let's say for example, you compare in Jakarta, around the Jakarta region, in US dollar terms, they are more or less the same as our minimum wage in Malaysia. Now that is a huge achievement because the gross national income per capita of Indonesia, of Malaysia, is much higher than those of Indonesia in US dollar terms. Say for example, in 2022, the gross national income of Malaysia in US dollar terms is about 11,780 US dollars. Indonesia in the same year was about 4,580 US dollars. So Malaysia's gross national income per capita is about 2.57 times higher than that of Indonesia. That's in 2022. But yet the minimum wage in Jakarta is more or less the same, or sometimes higher than Malaysia, depending on exchange rates. Now, talking about GNI per capita, gross national income per capita, that tells an even more amazing story about how much Indonesia has progressed or how much Malaysia has fallen behind. In 1999, during the tail end of the Asian crisis, Malaysia's GNI per capita was about 6 times that of Indonesia, 6 times, 600% larger. We were having about 3,430 US dollars. Indonesia was only 570 US dollars. So from a GNI per capita which is 6 times higher than Indonesia about 24 years ago, the gap between Malaysia and Indonesia has narrowed from 6 times larger. In 2022, Malaysia is only about 2.57 times higher than Indonesia. So obviously, the Indonesian economy, in terms of the GNI per capita, has performed much better than Malaysia. And Indonesia has not only outperformed Malaysia, but Indonesia on the same measurement, GNI per capita, has gone ahead of India. In 1999, Indonesia's GNI per capita was about 1.29 times higher than India. By 2022, even though the Western media loves to tell you that India is one of the fastest growing economy in the world and India has got such huge potential, but by 2022, Indonesia has gone ahead. Indonesia's GNI per capita has widened to 1.92 times that of India's GNI per capita. So, whether it's comparing with Malaysia, you could say that our GDP growth has been slow, or comparing with India, where you could say that GDP growth has been high and robust, Indonesia has outperformed these two economies. So if Indonesia can outperform India over the last 20 odd years and Malaysia over the last 20 odd years, the question now is, in the next 10-20 years, will Indonesia outperform Malaysia even more?
Nah, seperti itulah pengakuan warga dari Malaysia tentang masa depan cerah Indonesia. Tentu, untuk mencapai kemajuan itu, kuncinya adalah stabilitas politik, dan Indonesia sedang mengalami itu. Nah, selanjutnya ia menjelaskan perkembangan pembangunan infrastruktur di Indonesia yang membawa manfaat bagi semua sektor, seperti jalan tol, kereta cepat, dan sebagainya.
And we asked them, would you want the high-speed rail from Jakarta to Bandung? Would you want it to be extended all the way to East Java to Surabaya? All the local Indonesians said yes immediately. They were very happy with the project. Very different from what you read in the Western media. That the high-speed rail is another dead trap. There are no benefits to Indonesia. It's a wrong project. So when you talk to local people, they say, look, it's extremely popular. The frequency per day has, I think, more than doubled. It's very popular, and they want it to be extended. And talking about that, I think all of us are aware, know that the biggest obstacle facing Indonesia's explosion into high growth is infrastructure. Now Malaysia has been trying to build this highway, that highway for quite some time. And unknown to most people, Indonesia has got quite a number of major infrastructure which hasn't been highlighted. There is the Trans-Sumatra Highway, all the way from the north. It's under construction. It's due for completion either 2024 or 2025. I think by now more than 60% have been completed. It's very long. It's 2,800 kilometers. It runs the entire length of Sumatra from Aceh in the north down to really the southern tip of what is known as Bakauheni, which is, I think, near the Lampung district. It's 2,800 over kilometers. That is, if my memory is correct, that I think is about 3.5 times longer than the entire West Malaysia. And it's going to be completed. Can you imagine when Indonesia has that kind of connectivity, the improvement in productivity, the untapped resources that will be now realized, put into good use? We talked to an Indonesian company. He says, for them, they have a plant in southern Sumatra. For them to ship their product from southern Sumatra to Medan, it's more expensive. Southern Sumatra and Medan are on the same island, so it's more expensive and it takes longer than for the company to ship their product from West Jakarta to Medan, because the infrastructure in Sumatra is still lagging. So when you have things like the Trans-Sumatra toll road is completed, it changes the game altogether. And then there's also the Trans-Sumatra Railway and so on and so forth. And then, of course, you have the new capital, Nusantara, right, which is going to be launched next year. It's really progressing pretty well, but that's just the first phase. So I think, barring unforeseen circumstances, I think the crucial thing is the 2024 election. They can have two rounds. If the first round does not produce a decisive result, then they need a second round. But they can only have two rounds. So when Indonesia gets to have the next effective president, that will be for the next 5 to 10 years. And then by then Indonesia would have enjoyed 30 years of political stability. Right? All they need is that political stability, and then the huge hidden potential of Indonesia will be unleashed. And when that is unleashed, I think it will not be too far-fetched that 10-15 years from now, we Malaysians might want to come to Indonesia to look for work.
Begitulah Sobat Maju pengakuan jujur dari pengusaha Malaysia terhadap perkembangan Indonesia. Ia mengatakan bahwa 10-20 tahun ke depan, orang Malaysia akan mencari kerja di Indonesia.